Okay, so with this speed painting, I now have kind of the sharper brush, a little bit smaller, and I'm stealing colors directly from myself by holding down Option. But I'm still keeping with just black and white, right? Black is my foreground color, white as my background color. And as I want to go into details, I can use the navigator, which will always show it to me. It's going crazy. A little bit smaller. It'll give me the big picture, but then I can get into details and I can kind of carve it up. So let me just do this quickly, and then I want to show you how I would start adding color into this speed painting. Now the problem with using customized brushes like this is it takes a little bit more processing on the part of the computer. So if you notice that your brush is running slow, then you want to make sure you close other programs in Photoshop. Maximize your use of the performance settings and work from there. Because no tool is good if it's not predictable, right? So you need to use the tools you think are most predictable. And reference is always important when doing paintings, digital or otherwise. So you're actually training your eye to see the world the way we actually see it, not the way we imagine it to be. We always think that the whites of eyes are perfectly white, but that's not the truth. So looking at reference helps you realize that, how to get the illusions you want. And I'm still using kind of the biggest brush I can to do the job. Now, I will usually start at the eyes like I've done here, not trying to get them perfect, but just try to block them in, because that's always a focal point, a major focal point for any portrait, any caricature. But in general, you want to work over the whole image. So I'm going to move to the nose, try to shape that a little bit, get the nostrils in there. And working on top of the middle gray really helps you kind of see the different values, different relationships you need. And working at slightly lower opacity. You find what works best for you, what you're in the mood for. All right, going out a little bit. You can use your same navigation tools, Command minus to zoom out, Command plus to zoom in. Okay, you can see how the speed painting's building up. And I would keep working on it in black and white, but how do I add color? Well, I can always do a layer on top and just use my same brush, but instead of stealing colors from myself, steal colors from my reference, like so. But there's actually, if you're really happy with your values, you can do a layer on top and you change its blending mode to a color blending mode. And then if you pick a color, so say a middle skin color, and then I paint with it, it will match the values underneath. Doesn't make the saturation perfect, but you can see it matches the values pretty well. So you can kind of knock in the skin color pretty quickly that way. Maybe slightly more yellow in some places. All of these colors are a little bit too saturated for my taste, so I'm still going to steal them from my reference. But then for hair color, might be very subtle. That might be what you want. So that's a handy tool that a lot of professionals use. I really enjoy painting with color, so it's a trick I don't use too often, but I wanted to show it to you here. So for lips, and it can be a good way to start kind of making color decisions instead of just painting with color from the beginning, especially if you're uncomfortable with color. The most common mistake when painting with color is to not match the values with what's underneath. And so this does that for you. It's like painting with watercolors over the top of pencil. And so the watercolor mixes with the pencil and gets darker where your pencil is darker. It's also a nice way to see that even when things look very simplistic in their coloring, like his shirt looks white, there's color there. There's colors in the whites. There's blues, there's purples, and you can kind of knock those down. And his eyes are kind of grayed out. So that's a very easy way. You'll only see the color with the black behind it. That's an easy way to kind of start up a speed painting. All right, so let's look at the difference between these two methods. We have one where we kind of build up analytically on top of a reference, and whether we trace it or whether we just draw it freehand, but we're playing with basic shapes first, and then we're plotting in flat color, and then we're building on top of that. Of course, you can do this with customized brushes too, and kind of finding our way through. And with speed painting, it's very different. You have kind of more energy. He looks a lot older here, right? So to finish off either of these methods, it's really the same kind of thing. I do layers on top, and I start using more refined brushes, and I start being more careful with my color choices, and I start working between them. And depending on the look I want, I might use softer edged brushes at lower opacities so they blend more. But I'm kind of enjoying this custom brush I made, so I'm going to let it be a little more painterly. And whether you started it as a layout sketch or as a speed painting, it's up to you to kind of finish it off with careful observation. And what that would look like on actual painting is simply blending colors together, working between them. So I'm stealing colors from myself at low opacities and then blending them into each other. Right? And I'm using the direction of the brush to kind of tell my story of his forehead. Picking the colors that work best. And it's a lot of fun. It's really good practice. There are digital painters that love to just customize lots of brushes, use lots of different techniques and brushes. But to me, that just wastes time. But you find your own method. By customizing your brush and figuring out what you like, here it's looking more kind of like an oil painting, but you can make it look more like a watercolor. It has all the advantages of all those different media. You can do glazing, you can erase away, you can build lights over darks, you can do thin shadows, thick highlights. At the same time, you can let colors be transparent. I like that I have some kind of blues I can steal, because remember, this is full spectrum color. You don't always need to have just warm colors or cool colors. You can really mix it up. And people think digital painting is so much faster than traditional painting. It's not really true if you're going to be any good at it. But it definitely does kind of feel a little bit more engaged on all levels than traditional painting, because you're just constantly making very important decisions. And you get to save all that time it takes cleaning brushes and setting things up. I'll even throw some kind of random color in there sometimes to give me something to react to and to kind of mix in with. So I'll use that blue and then I'll mix away from it to have some different kind of color notes in the painting. We're not just trying to reproduce the reference, we're trying to make it our own, improve upon it. Now you'll see if you try to go too detailed too soon, like I am on these lips, you realize there's a lot of structure still missing there. So try to build from general to specific. Don't rush ahead too much. You got to put down the groundwork before you can get into the fun stuff. And speed painting is basically the bread and butter of concept artists who have to knock out ideas for color scripts, for movies, or for background designs. And this is basically how they work all the time. Often working in kind of Baroque color schemes where you're working away from the background, out of the shadows. Because it's digital, I can cut away the hair here. I'm not even using the eraser, I'm just painting with the background gray. Can shape the ear a little bit better. Build it with color. There's no tricks, there's just good observation. All right, so that's going to do it. I'm going to pause that for now. All right, so one thing I'm realizing, this is the problem with speed painting, is the energy in your details can often lead you to miss some of the big points here. And I've just made his glasses kind of more traditionally scaled, not the huge oversized glasses that they really are. So sometimes once you've done a speed painting for a while, you then need to go back almost to the layout phase and figure out how to fix your basic shapes. And because it's digital art, we're actually able to do that without too much trouble. So let me do that before I go too far. Just want to define his chin a little bit better. Okay, so what I'm going to do is turn off my background layers. Okay, so these are just all my paint strokes. And I'm going to hold down Option. Actually, I will leave the gray on. I'm going to hold down Option and say Layer, Merge Visible, but because I'm holding down Option, it's going to merge them all onto a top layer here. So it's all kind of flattened together right here. And why that's nice is then I can take my compositing skills and take his glasses with his eyes behind them, because by making his glasses too small, I also made his eyes too small on his head. There should be about 5 eyes across the face. And I've made it more, so there's like 7. Okay. Then I can duplicate those onto their own layer. and then just grow them.